They lose in overtime. And Uiagalelei is fine, but he's not Trevor Lawrence. They lose in overtime to the team that now gets ranked ahead of them. I understand why there's a sense of fairness, and this is how you have to be. But if we're being honest, Clemson has a very good case that, in fact, they should be ranked second. The reason I say that is this. Just to do a thought experiment with me. They have Trevor Lawrence for that game. By how many scores do they win? And I'm not taking anything away from Notre Dame. I like Ian Book a lot. I like Notre Dame a lot. But we all know that Clemson would have won by at least a couple scores if they had their quarterback. I know everyone has injuries. It's their quarterback. It's the guy who's projected to go first overall in the draft. And they still barely lost in overtime. I think Clemson should have been ranked second.
Yeah, what do you think? I apologize for not speaking because I am speechless. I've been sitting here trying to understand what you're saying, Max. I studied philosophy in college. I understand the theory behind syllogisms when you add things together to try to make a different numerical outcome. But I don't understand what you're talking about. I agree, Trevor Lawrence is the best player in the country, but he didn't play, and the other guy was great. And you're saying a team that lost in overtime at Notre Dame is 2 or 3 scores better, whatever you said. I'm not sure because I fell out of my chair. I think Clemson is in a fine spot. I mean, they can move up, they can move down. But here's the deal. In college football, they get to play again. They will play Notre Dame in 3 or 4 weeks. Yep. And if they win, they're going to be in, Max. And anyway, I apologize. I got some smelling salt. I'm ready for Thanksgiving. I may come out of this unconscious state before then, but it's all yours.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing for me too, Paul. When you look at this is the perfect spot for Clemson. This is a spot that was picked with foresight. This is a spot that says, you know what, Notre Dame and Clemson will play again, and that way the winner we can keep in the top 4. And when you look at DJ Uiagalelei, like, this dude can flat out go. He may not be Trevor Lawrence with who Trevor Lawrence is right now, but he's a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence was at this stage of his career. He was also a 5-star. He was also the number 1 guy coming out at his position. And so when you look at these teams and the way that they have things stacked, Clemson is in the perfect spot because I think they're in the benefit of the doubt spot. The reason they're number 3 is because they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, and they are saying that if they had Trevor Lawrence, maybe or probably they win that game, so let's keep them in the hunt. This is a perfect setup or a perfect start to the college football rankings.
I understand the wisdom of doing it this way, and you avoid Paul Finebaum falling out of his chair. I get that. But if you go on the road, with your backup quarterback and lose in overtime, and that's your only loss, and you have a dominant victory also over a top 10 team, another top 10 team, like, I'm just going to ask you right now.
Max, you gave up 40 points.
Based on the evidence so far, who's better, Clemson or Notre Dame?
Max, you gave
based on what we've seen, who's better, Clemson
Notre
or Notre
Dame,
Dame?
though.
Yeah, I mean, Max, I know you're busy doing whatever you do up in New York, but Clemson barely beat Boston College. They were way down in that game. I mean, they did not look great, and I just don't think you can,
come back. Yep.
Because you feel like it, say that Notre Dame, that Clemson's better than Notre Dame. The one thing I do like about Clemson, and we briefly talked about this yesterday, Max, Dabo Swinney, somehow, some way, in spite of the fact that they played for the national championships 5 out of the last 6 years and have won 2 of them, has come up with this idea that they are the most disrespected team in America. He's got the chip back on Clemson's shoulders by what happened Saturday in Tallahassee. So, I mean, I do think that is a tremendous advantage for that program, and I give him all the credit in the world for making something out of nothing, even though he was right about wanting to play that game. So I think for the most part, Clemson does have a lot to overcome, and I think they will beat Notre Dame. I'm not even sure Notre Dame's going to get out of Chapel Hill Friday. So you may be right about Clemson playing for the national championship again, but you couldn't be more wrong about saying that they would have beaten Notre Dame by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 100 touchdowns. I can't remember what you said a minute ago, because that's just blatantly ridiculous.
I said by at least a couple of scores. I said by at least a couple of scores.
Yeah.
Here's the bottom line. The Boston College point is a good one. It's a nice win if you beat Boston College. It's not like, it's a quality enough win, but you shouldn't have to be coming back on them if you're a top 4 team. I understand that point, and I think it's a good one, and there's some recency bias there. It just happened. But, I mean, if you're comparing Notre Dame and Clemson, based on what they've shown us so far this season, because we have the advantage of them having played each other, Notre Dame was at home, and Clemson didn't have their starting quarterback, and it was an overtime win. If you ask me to evaluate just honestly, not trying to appease fan bases, not trying to give you the appearance of fairness, but really just in a sober analysis, who's better, I'd have to say Clemson based on the evidence.
So Max, here's my question to you, though.
That makes
here's my
perfect
question
sense.
to you. What does Trevor Lawrence do above 439 yards, 2 tubs, no interceptions? I don't necessarily believe it's about not having the quarterback.
I think
because the quarterback wasn't the reason they were down to Boston College. They were down to Boston College in the first half because they couldn't stop him. Right? They also gave up 40 to Notre Dame.
Yep.
This is also about Brett Venables and that defense. Like, we can't just say that they're the best team in the country right now when they have Trevor Lawrence.
That's a fair point to make. The defense has bent a lot, right? And even against Notre Dame, you could say it broke. But Notre Dame is very good. They were at home, right? Like, I understand not putting Clemson 1. I'm talking about them versus Notre Dame. I saw them play. I'm giving you my honest assessment of who I think is better because, again, we have the evidence. They went head-to-head. Well, Notre Dame won the game. Yes, by the skin of their teeth in overtime at home without Trevor Lawrence. Come on, guys. Who's better? Who's better?
One last point here before we go to Thanksgiving. Hey, Max, it wasn't like the stadium was full either. It was a small crowd at Notre Dame. This wasn't the most feared. This wasn't playing in Newt Rockne's time. The only thing I will say here in conclusion is, Max, I don't know what your plans are for tomorrow. I don't know if you have to work or not. I think you should take the day off. I think you should lay on the couch and recover. I don't know what has infected you, but you are as crazy today as I have ever heard you. And where is Stephen A. Ryan when we need him? Because this would have been
we need him to calm
a first-round knockout if Stephen A. had been here. I'm not up to his level because I'm not sitting there with Max.
Paul,
anyway,
who's better,
happy
Notre Dame or
Thanksgiving,
Clemson?
Max.
Who's better? Who do you think
Thanks
is better,
for the
Notre Dame or
entertainment.
Clemson?
I thought Notre Dame was better when they met 4 weeks ago.
That's what the scoreboard said. Max just ignores the scoreboard.
We don't want you to have to scratch your head any longer. You've brought all the wisdom to First Take today, so we thank you so much for that. And have a happy Thanksgiving. I know being in the South, you're going to have all the good food.
Happy Thanksgiving,
enjoy.
Paul.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Paul, again, thank you.